Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM radio. All right. Well, each week, every Thursday, we have the Ask Brien radio show. It's basically a business show where we try to help our listeners learn something about business. But every week, people say, why is Brien spelled with an E? And we go through this whole rigmarole of trying to explain that to people. So if the people that have been listening to the show, they know it. But some people don't, and we never know about a new listener coming on. So for that reason, we have to explain why Brien is spelled with an E, and it's not spelled B-R-I-A-N or B-R-Y-A-N, or my name is Peter, so let's get more confused. So, Tracy, give us some reasons why Brien is spelled with an E.
Well, I usually start out with one specific E, but I am feeling just highly energetic today and super enthusiastic. So I wanted to kick us off with talking about how important the energy is that you bring to anything that you do. And our experts always do that.
I think there's way too many. You're trying to be too efficient, and people don't understand what you're talking about. And it's like, okay, can I put all 5 E's in a paragraph? Of course you can.
In one sentence.
But it doesn't make...
We have such an exciting guest today. I just wanted to just make sure we got right into it.
Well, you already said exciting. That was the first one you said. So, and you're missing the 3 most important ones that you're aware of.
Oh, I wasn't missing anything. I just wanted to shake it up a little bit in terms of the order in which we announced them.
Well, it's not very shaken at all, except for shaking the confidence in our listeners, like, what's going on here? What happened?
So maybe what you're saying is a shaky beginning, not shaking it up?
Exactly. And I don't want to get into the whole shaking business. That would get me thrown off the air.
Well, okay. So let's just get further into it with our absolute talk about the experts that we interview on the show and what is exactly defines an expert.
Are you asking me or are you telling me? It sounds like you're asking the question because you don't know. But, I'm sorry, but especially from somebody like you who these used to be the top 2 E's for you, and you're not even discussing them. We're going to have to get through those 2, and then I will answer that question because it looks like I'm going to have to get involved here, right? So, I empathize. Okay, very important aspect of our company here. We empathize with all of our listeners, with everybody out in the world, and we especially empathize with the engineer who puts his heart and puts everything into it to make this show a great show. So, can we have an applause?
Oh, thank you. Applause for me. Applause. Thank you.
Round of applause for the engineer. Absolutely. And we also really should probably remind everybody that this show is, if you are an entrepreneur, if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, that this is the show for you. You are in the right place because we are going to be doing everything that we can possibly do to shortcut your learning curve on your entrepreneurial journey. And we do that through education, and we do that through, have we ever used enlightenment before?
Well, we haven't even finished that. Why are you jumping 3 other subjects when you still haven't solved what an expert is? I mean, come on. No, you asked me what an expert was. You asked me what an expert was?
It just felt exhausting. Okay, so an expert is someone who becomes an expert in their field, their industry, their business category by, on average, working 30 hours a week over the course of 5 consecutive years, assuming they take a couple weeks off for vacation. So therefore, it creates 10,000 hours of expertise in their field, their industry, their business category, like I was saying. But we all know that no entrepreneur that's probably dedicated and serious about their endeavor would only work 40 hours a week. So you could possibly shortcut that by 2 years, 3 years. But that is the math, if I am correct.
It sounds like going to college, a 4-year college, and graduating in 2 years. All right, so I think there's like 1 or 2 other E's here, but we are going to try to get into the show. And so we're going to start off with Tracy's most famous one, and that's grease lightning is
electrifying, and so are we.
all right. And part of experts is experience, because when you have done something 10,000 times, you know it. And that's why Tracy and I know about the E's, because we've done it 10,000 times. All right.
But clearly, I could still use a little bit more practice because I just went off the rails today. But that's okay. We got to keep it interesting.
Well, it's a good thing we're not a train, because we don't want to be off the rails. All right. Without any further ado, and why do I like that word?
ADIEU. ADIEU, because it's all vowels one consonant, all consonants one vowel. I can never get that part right. I can spell it. It's all vowels one consonant. I just had to think about it for a second.
All right. Well, without any further ado, our guest is going, what did Brien get me into? And I'm going to have a conversation. So, Daniel, you're there.
Hello, Peter. How are you? Hello, Tracy. Hello to
Hello.
All right. Well, you survived the first part, so, where's the applause?
Thank you.
All right, you survived that first part. That we have to give you an applause for that, for sticking around. All right. So he's got persistence. All right. The name of your company is Geno Bank. Okay. Explain to me how you came up with the name.
Thank you very much. So basically, our most sensitive data set or molecule is our DNA, right? So my journey started in 2017 when one of my kids, I have 3 kids, was diagnosed with a rare disease. And I was already working in cybersecurity, blockchain technology, and a little bit of bioinformatics. So I came with the idea of having basically what we call a genetic data locker that could be owned and controlled by the individuals or the patients or the families, but not by the companies. So basically, Genobank is literally a digital bank where you can store what I think or what we believe is your most valuable information, which is your DNA data.
So why not DNA Bank?
Well, it's a very interesting question because there are other molecules like RNA, right, that also are part of, and it's like could be DNA, could be RNA, could be your microbiome, and could be also all other data sets related to your health. But it's like a genetic, could be genetic vault as well. But we also think that bank is good because you can also store financial assets. Because let's remember that now blockchain technology allows to tokenize or to represent as tokens almost everything, right? Like currencies, data sets, images, music, many digital things that are unique. Yeah.
So walk us through the process. I do want to go a little bit about the company and how you got here, but I want people to understand the whole process here. So let's say I want to go to, first of all, do I go to a Geno Bank? Do I call in an online order form and give a little bit of my saliva and some blood? I mean, how does this process work?
Well, that's an awesome question. So we are a business-to-business protocol. So we basically work with existing laboratories, or well, they can be new as well, or emerging laboratories and genetic testing companies that would like to differentiate themselves from by offering a total privacy-preserving repository or a storage, an individual storage piece of their servers to allow the users to store the data, but without them having like absolute control on that data. So the way it works is once we connect with the laboratory, we protect or we create these data lockers using their existing platform or their existing cloud services or their existing servers. But by using our technology, we allow their users, patients, or participants to control the encryption of their data. So the encryption is no longer controlled by the company. It's controlled by each individual. So this creates like what we call a self-sovereign data vault, right? So even if the data sets are stored by the laboratories or the genetic data companies, without the corresponding token, access token, we call it, or we also call it like a consent token, given by the individual or the owner of the data, the company will not be able to decrypt the data. So it's basically an encryption, decryption kind of a schema that is now controlled by the users and not by the company. I don't know if this is a good step. So yeah, you still go to the laboratory. The laboratory will offer you a kit, but this kit now will not be the data coming from that kit, which is your DNA usually, will not be centralized in a data set, in a database that will contain, let's say, thousands of users. Each user will have its own database or its own repository or bucket. There are many names, but at the end of the day, everybody will be able to have their own security box, like in banks, right? So banks offer these security boxes for physical valuable objects, and we offer this kind of same approach, but for data.
So basically, you're offering. First of all, it's not a software package that you offer to people. It's actually actual. I mean, how do you do the encryption without software? There's got to be some software component to this, no?
Yes, totally. So it's basically what we do is we offer unique QR codes for the kits. So we substitute the regular QR codes with our own technology. So that's part of the protocol. And we also offer an API. So these APIs will control, as you were saying, the governance of the data sets. And now we empower the individual, even again if the data set is stored in the laboratory's premises or servers. So yes, it's basically we are a software company that we use Web3 or blockchain methods to do this self-sovereign governance schema.
Yeah. Do you own any patents?
We do. We have not own yet. So we have 3 patents pending. Exactly, they are pending. They're still being analyzed by the authority, but we think we have great chances to obtain them. Yes.
And without getting too into any confidential areas, so give me an example. What does one of your patents do? Is it a patent over this complex system of encryption and keeping the data unavailable to other users? Is that what the patent's for, or what exactly is the patent for, if you can tell us?
No, of course. Basically, our claims protect the use of non-fungible tokens. So I don't know if you have heard about how, these NFTs or non-fungible tokens started being very famous last year. Basically, the most famous use case so far is the visual NFTs, where you can tokenize an image, basically for authorship or to protect ownership and make it more unique, right, in terms of the digital world or the metaverse, right? So these NFTs work very well for objects or digital assets that are really unique, such as the DNA, right? So our patent covers that we represent each of your biosample or your bio data set with an NFT, and these NFT, we call them bio NFTs, because they protect or they encode the rights or the privacy rules that can be, let's say, agreed upon the 2 parties. So here's an example. I would like to participate, let's say, in a research, right? So I, the biosample owner, will issue a token, an NFT, a bio NFT, toward the laboratory with encoding, like, which date they'll be able to access the data, from which date to date, the period of time, what is the purpose. I will be able to revoke it, and so on and so forth. So it's the rules, right? The policy that is between the company and I. Because today, consent, because we are basically talking about consent tokens, consent is really given in a very static, and once you give a paper kind of based consent, you will never see your biosample or your data again. And in this way, it's a way to digitally track permissions, to track, let's say it's a kind of license to use for your biosample and your biodata. And the innovation here is that now we're using the blockchain to make it public, but confidential. So that's also very important. We take privacy very seriously. And the thing is that even if Genobank disappears, because we're using Web3 methods, all these NFTs will keep on existing and being able to serve the individuals, just because everything is self-sovereign, right? So everything will work as long as the blockchain technology is out there. So this is the innovation, because today, if you give your data to someone and that company gets acquired or gets Chapter 11, then all the consents and all the data will, be in a kind of a limbo, right? Will not have certainty of what would happen, and not in this case. So it's a decentralized governance mechanism.
So how is if it's all encrypted? Okay, so first of all, how do other companies, the other part of this equation, how do other companies take this data to look for cures, to look for things? How are they doing that? I mean, if it's encrypted, there must be some way that all these researchers can get into the database and say, this one has 42 chromosomes, so I want to figure something out, and that's what I'm working on. It has to be filtered. Well, the only way to filter that is to technically go through each account. If the accounts are encrypted, I don't understand how a researcher could go through that.
Well, that's an amazing question. So researchers can make requests specifically to one or many. I mean, they can broadcast a request in the network, because basically we work as a network. And people, if they decide to enroll or to participate, they will create the specific token to that specific researcher, university, genetic testing company, and so on and so forth. So it's again creating a unique license for each of the relationships. So in my mind, it looks like an octopus, right? In the middle is your boat, and and then each arm of the octopus is a relationship between your data and someone else, and that someone else cannot be anonymous. The only part that can be anonymous is you, because the database only works with pseudo-anonymous numbers or identifiers for the patients or the data owners, while the rest of the network has to be totally identified.
So we only have 30 seconds left, but essentially my understanding is somebody's going to give their DNA into a laboratory. It's going to be nobody's going to know who that person is. Researchers are going to be able to find out if they're looking for everybody that has the cirrhosis of the liver gene, whatever. They can go through that analysis. That part is available. They just won't know who the person is. Then take that data and then try to find a cure for cirrhosis. Is that the concept?
Yes, and exactly that. And again, just because now you have a wallet, or we call it a DNA wallet, that is pseudo-anonymous, your identity is not conflicted. So everything is just by using avatars, let's say.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Thank you very much. Listen to KHTS 1220, 98.1 FM. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. This is the episode where we're discussing Genobank, and it's not a player. It's not a sports player. It's an actual Genobank. All right, let's go. Tracy, Mrs. Pivot.
Yes, well, I am pivoting today to talk about team building and leadership, because all of what you shared previously was amazing about the product and the product development itself. But we all know that no organization can function, or they only function as well as their team. So can you give us a little bit of history of the timeline of the team that you've built and where things stand with that today?
Thank you very much, Tracy. Of course. So basically, we're still a small team. We are 5 people working full-time, and we have other persons helping us in part-time, right? So we are a team of 10 people total. But the core team is basically 3 engineers, software engineers. I'm considering part of that. I'm kind of the architect or the designer of the solution. And I have 2 very good friends of mine, very good colleagues. And we have the back-end part and the front end, right? So it's basically what happens behind the scenes, and then what happens, obviously, facing toward the user. And we basically have the background of cybersecurity and data management. So this is very important. I think this is one of the most needed parts in the history of the human digitalization, right? So it's to separate the public data from the private data, or the data that can be owned by a particular individual or family. And we all are passionate about that specific topic. The other thing is that it's kind of a good anecdote that all of my team is involved on DNA data privacy. We all have like these concerns when participating with all these legacy companies, that once you have or you hand out your biosample or your saliva or your tissue, then you are out of the equation, and there's no way you can trace what's going on after that event. So we are all involved, but our main mission, or the thing that is the main glue, is that we want to help people with rare diseases to access their genomic data, their genomic map, and be able to access a proper diagnose, and specifically in the for the newborn sequencing, which is something very new. And so that's my technical team, and then I have my sales rep, Michael, the person that helps us to outreach to laboratory genetic testing companies and generate some leads. So that's basically my core team, and then we have obviously the marketing team that is outside of the core team, and some other business developers that help us.
That's amazing. I would imagine that you probably faced some challenges because of the requirement of the technical skills that are needed for you to be as successful as you are, that you had certain criteria. Can you talk through any of the challenges that you have experienced in terms of recruiting, retention, maybe even if you were struggling with certain things during the pandemic that may have been rectified now or still going on?
Of course. Excellent questions again. So the technical part, yes, has been the most challenging one, because we consider like Web3, or the Web3 stands for any blockchain related kind of development. Is really still new. We are still early in that technology. So not all the engineers available, men and females engineers, are fully trained. But that's okay. We teach them whatever they need to learn, and we are, I think, most of the time very, very patient on that regard. But it's an interesting question, because this specific use case, what I'm referring is to the DNA decentralized management, led me to know a really special person in our ecosystem. His name is William Entriken. William lives in Philadelphia, and he helped me to architect our existing platform. And who is William April? Well, he is the lead author of the most famous NFT, or the most famous non-fungible token in the world, which is the ERC-721. So being very, very technical, but we're talking to about a person that helped the entire world to make more than 1 billion transactions already, and he's a fantastic person. So I said, hey, Will, we need to have a specific schema, a specific protocol for DNA, and it seems we didn't. He just adapted the ERC 721 model. And from there, we talked to the other team, and part of the friends during those conversations came on board, and those are our existing engineers today. So that's kind of we were connected first ideologically, which I believe is the best glue you can have in your team, and then we just worked together. Now, in the pandemic, we didn't have too much trouble, to be honest, because part of the team is in Slovenia. Part of the team is in San Francisco, and the other engineer is in Mexico. Is in Yucatan, in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. So we have always been working remotely. So the pandemic was not basically an issue.
Yeah, that what an amazing connection that you're able to make with such a skilled person in that specific area. That really feels like something that's almost a miracle of sense in a way, right?
I think so too. It was providential, I would say. I mean, obviously, I contacted him a couple of times, but he receives, I think, thousands of requests. But he was interested because he also had, let's say, a call to say, hey, well, let's use this technology to empower the individual to have a saying, to have control over these data sets using this technology. And he's still obviously close to Genobank, and but it was really, really a very nice opportunity to interact with Will.
Well, that's an amazing place for us to pause for our sponsor. Do we have our sponsor on the line, Peter?
Yes, you do.
Oh, hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Glad you're here.
Thank you so much.
Well, there's our sponsor. Her name is Stephanie, and she's from Albany Farms and Legal Steps. What is that?
Oh, my.
Yes. And she doesn't live in a shoe. All right, so, remember the lady in the shoe? So, Stephanie, people want to know. Maybe you may have to move into a shoe. What? And don't step on anyone. What is Albany Farms, and what do they do? Usually.
Wow. Usually, what we normally do, or what we want to do. So, Albany Farms is definitely not a farm. We are a food manufacturing facility located in Belfouche, South Dakota, and our portfolio consists of fried instant ramen noodles right now. Our product, our brand is called Twisted Noodles, and our product can be found in a microwavable cup or a 3-ounce pillow. So those are the two types of presentations that we have right now, and you can find us in some local grocery stores, small retailers in South Dakota such as MJ's, Reuters. We've also donated to a few local food banks and women's homes, things like that. But our large retail customers consist of H-E-B and Target and Walmart Canada right now.
And H-E-B and Target are in the United States, is that correct?
Yes, in the U.S.
And then there's this other company, Legal Steps, and everybody doesn't understand what Legal Steps is all about. All that they think is when you go to the courtroom and you see the steps up to the courtroom or the courthouse, that's what they're all thinking about. And they also don't understand why it's spelled with a Z. But go ahead, maybe you can enlighten some people.
Okay. Yeah, so it's definitely not a bunch of steps. You don't have to worry about doing any cardio here. It's basically a do-it-yourself system to handle all legal issues like forming a business in California or even registering a federal trademark. Ultimately, it saves you thousands of dollars, and it empowers entrepreneurs, making legal easy. And the reason why it's spelled with a Z and not an S is because it covers everything from A to Z. Everything that you might have questions, concerns, or comments about, it has the answers to all of those.
Wow, it sounds pretty comprehensive. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Until next week. I do have a question for our guest as soon as you're done. Thank you, Stephanie. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.
So I do have a question for the guest. I ask every guest on the show now. So I don't know if you heard about Legal Steps. That basically is a step-by-step program to teach you how to incorporate a business or do a trademark. I don't know if you've done that for your company yet or not, but if you had something out there that was like that, do you think that would be something good for somebody that's starting a business?
Oh, totally. Yeah, actually, we went through that process. And I also happen to know a lot of the legal stuff from Mexico. And yeah, it's the United States is obviously 10 times easier and 10 times more clearer to build a company. Because just an example, you can incorporate a company within, let's say, roughly 2 weeks, I would say, and then open the bank account the next day, basically. In Mexico, it can take you from 4 to 6 months to have the complete thing. So that hurts, obviously, the entrepreneurial ecosystem. But, yeah, for sure, this is one of the most important topics when you are trying to build your own company.
Well, thanks. We have about another 4 minutes. Tracy had some more questions about business and your operations.
Yeah, so we were talking through building out your team and your leadership. I want us to get to marketing, but before we get to marketing, we do need to understand, so how are you planning on scaling from where you are now to where you want to be?
Thank you, Tracy. So today we already work with 30 laboratories. The number one reason the laboratories are interested in our platform is to cryptographically protect all the data that they are producing. And let me explain a little bit more, because when some laboratory, it could be clinical or it could be genetic or whatever laboratory, they will just basically share the data using legacy methods, like maybe it's encrypted or decrypted or whatever, but it's not signed. And what I'm meaning about signing is like this technology using like DocuSign or HelloSign that usually we use for documents, right? But now, using our technology, they can sign data. And these signatures, these cryptographic signatures, their main objective is to prevent fraud. Because there's a lot of legal cases around data that comes from laboratories. Let's say a paternity test, right? So a paternity test is higher quality if it's cryptographically signed and notarized using the blockchain, because it cannot be altered. It is now a tamper-proof data set. So that's the number one reason. And the second reason, obviously, is to comply with data privacy regulations in a better and very innovative way, because now laboratories are accepting that the owner of those data sets is the patient or the individuals and not them, because many companies also kind of have a fine print where if you participate with some specific companies, they will make you forfeit the ownership of your data, which we think is not ethical. It could be legal, but it's not necessarily ethical. So we prevent that those cases. So we are scaling because privacy now is becoming a very important topic. Let's remember that now one of the main agendas in the House of Representatives, is this thing about TikTok and the data from Americans being in hands of a Chinese company. So that's right away a data privacy issue. So now, if we would like to obviously scale, because we want to protect everybody's DNA, right, from foreign countries or let's just say unauthorized parties in general, right? But in essence, we have talked to, let's say, the director of cybersecurity from Israel, and himself, he said, no, the DNA data from our citizens is a matter of national security. And every single country should be thinking in the same way. So by using our technology, we can comply with those type of kind of national security and encryptions and all the policies.
Wow, that is such exciting stuff. And it's something that the world is really ready for, especially when it comes to all of the privacy rights, and there's so much conversation around that. You mentioned, and we only have about 60 seconds for the break, so you mentioned that you have a business development person on your team. Are they focused more on the B2B side or the B2C side, and why? And then once you answer that, then we'll come back after the break.
Thank you, Tracy. Very quickly, yes, is B2B is more Michael is more to contact laboratories and genetic testing companies that again they just acknowledge that we need more privacy and to give more controls toward their patients, and they're using this as a competitive advantage. Just like Apple is using like the privacy as the new branding, right? So we don't sell your data. We can sell you, let's say, expensive and fancy apparatus, but not your data, right? We don't mess with your data. So we're kind of the same in that regard.
Well, we're going to be taking a break. We're going to be right back. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. And we have our guest, Daniel from Geno Bank. Is it Geno Bank or Geno Bank? Never understood.
Both ways is okay, but we think it's more like Genobank, but because it comes from genomics. But yeah, either way works.
Super. Tracy?
Yes, so we're going to continue to ask more questions. In the meantime, though, I want to be sure that our audience, if they want to continue this conversation, learn more about the company and all the fascinating things that you have going on in the technology space, what is the best way for them to learn more about the company and even possibly engage with you if that's an option?
Of course, we would love to talk with anybody that could be interested on our technology stack or even if in privacy and genomics, let's say, or DNA. The best way, I think, is still my email, which is daniel@genobank.io. I am also very active on LinkedIn, so you can find me as Daniel Uribe or Uribe. I have in all my profiles, I have a DNA emoticon or a DNA kind of a little icon, so I'm kind of a easy target then to locate. But and I'm also on Twitter. My name is or my user there is the UIBB. So, but again, more than happy to continue the conversation, and hopefully there's more and more interest on using the technology to empower basically patients to own and control their information, and in this way we protect everybody else, right? Because let's remember that the DNA is a family reference. So 50% of our DNA is my father, 50% is my mother, and 25% is my grandparents, and so on and so forth, right? So it's basically the DNA is a family reference. It's not only an individual, and we call this like the DNA is the blockchain technology from nature, right? It's how it's been keeping the information that works and the information that doesn't work, and we call this the evolution, right? So now we can have digital technology to also keep the ownership of these data sets as well, and I'm really honored to have been here, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about Genobank.
Yes, well, thank you. And for those who are listening and could possibly not be able to capture all of that, the resource links will be in the show notes of the podcast, and so that you'll be able to make those connections if you're interested in doing that. And speaking of the podcast, we would love for you to go to wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, so that could be Apple, Spotify, iHeart, any of the platforms where you listen, and you can not only review and listen to this particular episode, or you can listen to our back catalog of our previous experts that we've had on the Ask Brien show. So go and identify the Ask Brien, that's AskBrien podcast, and follow it, and leave us a rating, a review, and share it with your friends.
Well, thanks. So I have another question, Daniel. If somebody actually wanted to use your services or get involved, how do they do that? I mean, how do they know which labs they can go to?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. So we have a list in our portal of our existing partners, but the main outreach, to be honest, is being done by the laboratories themselves. So they are trying to promote that now they have these individual or privacy-preserving genetic data lockers to protect the information, and we just appear like the privacy by Genobank, right? But we are still a startup, so we are still we don't have too many laboratories as we might like. But hopefully, people will start even demanding, right? This type of I mean, it's more like an invitation. So please try to speak with all the laboratories and start asking what are they doing with your bio data, right? So after you interact with them and start getting more involved, please, with what is going on with your biosamples and bio data, and this starts the conversation, and it allows us to connect with more laboratories over and over. Yep.
Super. Thank you very much, Daniel. Great to have you on KHTS 1220 98.1 FM. Over and out.